Odysseus is the central protagonist of the Odyssey, an ancient Greek epic poem traditionally attributed to Homer. Composed around the 8th century BCE, the poem recounts Odysseus' long journey home after the Trojan War. Odysseus is the king of Ithaca, renowned for his intelligence, adaptability, and endurance. As a warrior, wanderer, and king, Odysseus transcends the role of a traditional hero, becoming a symbol of universal human experiences. His journey home from Troy is both a literal and a metaphorical odyssey through temptation, suffering, loyalty, identity, and rebirth. One character story. Odysseus's story in the Odyssey begins in the aftermath of the Trojan War, with his reputation as a brilliant strategist already established through his role in devising the Trojan horse. Yet this same intelligence becomes a source of prolonged suffering. As Odysseus leads his men away from Troy, his journey is immediately marked by loss and poor judgment, beginning with the raid on the Cyclades, where overconfidence leads to unnecessary casualties. One defining episode of Odysseus' voyage is his encounter with the Cyclops Polyphemus. Trapped in the monster's cave, Odysseus relies on deception rather than force, calling himself nobody and blinding Polyphemus to escape. Yet his subsequent act of pride, revealing his true name, provokes Polyphemus to call upon his father, Poseidon, whose curse ensures Odysseus' return home will be long and painful. As the journey continues, Odysseus faces increasingly symbolic challenges. On Aeolus Island, the Bag of Winds symbolizes divine favor, which he loses when his crew's mistrust leads to its opening. In Circe, Odysseus demonstrates adaptability and leadership by resisting her magic and securing his men's release. His descent into the underworld marks a turning point as he gains prophetic knowledge of his fate and learns that restraint and humility are essential for survival. Later trials further test his endurance and judgment. Odysseus resists the sirens by binding himself to the mast, balancing curiosity with discipline. He must choose between Scylla and Charybdis, accepting the loss of a few men to avoid total destruction. After years of wandering, Odysseus is finally held by Calypso, who offers him immortality, yet he chooses mortal life and the hope of home. Upon reaching Ithaca, Odysseus conceals his identity and observes the household's corruption. His prolonged absence also shapes events in Ithaca, where suitors overrun his household. Upon his return, disguised as a beggar, he demonstrates restraint and strategic patience. His final confrontation with the suitors restores order but underscores the violence required to reclaim identity and authority. Odysseus' story is not merely a physical journey but an inward progression towards self-knowledge and balance. 2. Role in the narrative. Odysseus is the protagonist and driving force of the Odyssey. The epic follows his 10-year journey home to Ithaca after the Trojan War. His absence has brought chaos to his kingdom. His wife, Penelope, is besieged by suitors, his son, Telemachus, is coming of age without a father, and his household is losing hope of his return. Thus, the central narrative tension centers on Odysseus's struggle to overcome obstacles posed by the gods, nature, and his own flaws. His intelligence propels the plot forward, while his flaws create conflict and delay. Throughout the epic, Odysseus's cleverness and resilience help him escape life-threatening situations. He blinds the Cyclops Polyphemus through trickery, resists the sirens by plugging his ears with wax and securing the ship, and disguises himself to retake his home from the suitors. These episodes underscore his intelligence, resourcefulness, and strategic mind. However, Odysseus's story is not a straightforward march to victory. It is filled with mistakes, delays, and divine punishments, all of which make him a more nuanced and human character. Narratively, Odysseus bridges the mortal and divine realms, interacting with the gods while remaining bound by human limitations. His use of disguise, storytelling, and deception underscores the poem's emphasis on identity as fluid rather than fixed. Structurally, his absence from Ithaca creates narrative tension, while his return resolves social and moral disorder. Odysseus thus anchors the epic's exploration of homecoming, nostos, endurance, and responsibility. 3. Symbolic significance. On a symbolic level, Odysseus represents the archetypal hero, not in the sense of flawless strength, but as a man shaped by trials and tribulations. He symbolizes endurance, adaptability, and the pursuit of home and identity. In each episode, the challenges he faces mirror internal human struggles: pride, as when he taunts Polyphemus and invokes Poseidon's wrath; temptation, as with Circe and Calypso; despair, when he weeps on the beach, longing for Ithaca; and ultimately, the quest for self-knowledge. Odysseus is also a symbol of human resilience in the face of fate and divine power. Though many of his hardships are the result of the gods' will, particularly Poseidon's vengeance, Odysseus never surrenders. He presses on, driven by the hope of reunion and restoration. This resilience makes him a symbol of hope, embodying the conviction that perseverance can overcome adversity. Beyond Odysseus's personal story, the Odyssey explores broader cultural and philosophical themes. One of the most prominent is nostos, the Greek concept of homecoming. Odysseus's desire to return home is not merely physical but also spiritual. Ithaca represents a return to order, identity, and belonging. The entire epic centers on this human longing for stability after chaos, a theme that resonates across cultures and centuries. Another significant implication of Odysseus's character is the exploration of human limitations. Unlike Achilles in the Iliad, who embodies martial perfection, Odysseus is fallible and often uncertain. His hubris sometimes invites disaster, as when he reveals his name to Polyphemus. His choices carry consequences, and his suffering is not always noble. This humanization marks a shift in heroic literature, from glorifying brute strength to exploring psychological and emotional depth. Odysseus's emotional complexity, his tears, doubts, and longing, makes him relatable and timeless. For conclusion, Odysseus, the cunning king of Ithaca, remains one of literature's most enduring characters. His concise identity as a clever, resilient hero is deepened by trials that test his intelligence, morality, and endurance. Symbolically, he represents humanity's capacity to adapt, learn, and survive amid chaos and divine indifference. Through Odysseus, Homer crafts a hero's journey that is also a profoundly human story exploring what it means to suffer, strive, and ultimately return. His Odyssey is both personal and universal, a reflection of the journey we all must undertake in the pursuit of meaning, belonging, and self-understanding. Readers admire his ingenuity yet remain uneasy about his arrogance and violence. This tension is precisely what gives the character lasting power. Through him, the Odyssey presents a nuanced vision of heroism, one grounded not in perfection but in perseverance and self-awareness.